Greetings, traveler. As Dungeons & Dragons has progressed through the editions, there have been many changes to the rules, to combat, to spells, and so on. But my favorite change that happened to Dungeons & Dragons rulebook happened on 5th edition onwards. And it's not something about combat, it's not about movement, and it's not about spells. Today, I want to talk about what my favorite part of this edition onwards is, and why I think it's very important, especially when playing with first-time players or with players who are not very experienced in the game. My name is Xanthos. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for about 30 years now, usually as a dungeon master, most of the time as dungeon master, and I often am in the situation where I need to play with new players, people who don't know the rules very well, or people who don't even know what Dungeons & Dragons is to begin with. So for that type of a player, and for players who, they have played some video games with or some RPGs that kind of deal with the same kind of world and gameplay as Dungeons & Dragons, they know about the world and the rules and so on, but they don't know what they should do as players. So that motivation to go through the story, the motivation of the player to take their character through the story, find an objective to do both for the party and for that individual character themselves, has always been something that I see people and players struggle with. And even if they manage to create a character that performs well, is strong, and there's everything that should be there is there on the character sheet, what's missing is the motivation of the player for what to do inside the story. It often felt like no matter what the story of the game is, if that character has no motivation to engage with the story, no objective of their own, then they would feel like a passenger and wouldn't enjoy the game as much. So with 5th edition, I saw the addition of backgrounds and, of course, inspiration as linked to that. So if you're curious about what that is, it's basically the section in the book that talks about all the background information of the character. And it breaks it down to personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. So all the information is there if you want to go through it. But to quickly summarize what it's all about, it's what the character has been doing in their lives up to the point where they join the game, or where they that they join the group and start the adventure. So this covers their profession up to that point, if they had one, or what sort of life they lived up to that point. What are the most important ideals in their life? Are they very altruistic or very materialistic, or do they just not care about anything? For people, also, what are important people in their lives, or what are important organizations in their lives? And of course, what sort of flaws they have as a character. We all know from movies and from games and so on that whenever a character is presented and that character has absolutely no flaws, they're a flawless champion of justice, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with their personality. No hidden desires, no vices, no addictions, no moments of weakness, and so on. Then it's hard to relate with that character, and it's hard to see them as another human being. They more look like a cardboard cutout, as many people describe them as. So they don't feel very realistic, to put it simply. So the reason why I think this system is so important, even though it has nothing to do with combat or spells or movement or any of that stuff, is because it very much sets the player down a very interesting path that is important specifically for their character. So if the character seeks to gain power, as is often the case, then the adventure in the game serves as a means to achieve that. If the character needs to find a lost relative or a lost friend, then perhaps where the adventure is taking them will reveal more information, or the person himself. If the character's motivation is to become wealthy or to serve others, or basically anything that already describes that character's personal goal can then be linked to the story. Whether the story takes them to a certain location, has them fight against a certain big bad evil guy, or basically anything else. Then the connection can be made. If the character, on the contrary, has no motivations, no goals, nothing other than let's get into combat and roll some dice, then that's good, but for the rest of the time they don't know what to do outside of combat, right? It's very difficult to motivate them to engage with the story and do the role-playing part and so on. Not that every player should absolutely be doing that 100% of the time, but having that, even if that player doesn't want to role-play as much or doesn't want to engage with the storyline as much, it gives them a reason for everything they're doing. If the character has no reason to do anything to begin with, then combat or exploration or any of that stuff becomes meaningless by connection. And that is very elegantly linked in the rules with the inspiration mechanic. So why do I like the inspiration mechanic so much? When training for anything, when learning something together with a coach or together with a teacher or something, it is much, much easier to learn it when you know which actions are the beneficial ones, which actions will get you closer to your goal. In this case, having a character act in accordance to their ideals and their objectives and so on, not only sounds thematic for the character, but it also improves the story. And moreover, if the character acts based on their flaws, then that's just a never-ending source of amusement, hilarity, realism for that character, since it will undoubtedly create some sort of situation that the rest of the party will have to untangle to move forward. So it sounds like it could be a headache or a bother, but that's up to the Dungeon Master and the players to regulate so it doesn't become a big hindrance, and it's usually used to comedic effect in the game, which I think is brilliant. So inspiration at the same time works in a way where once it's awarded to one player, then that player has to use it, otherwise it moves on to the next player who does something clever or role plays well. So that means that in that system, if every player does one inspiring thing per session, then perhaps inspiration will only be used once per session. So if there's 4 players, let's say, one of them will do something very close in accordance with their character, and they will be awarded inspiration. They will not want to use it, they will not want to waste it, so they will hold on to it. And then because they haven't used it yet, the Dungeon Master might not want to give it to somebody else to make them feel the benefit. But that sort of situation where you're hoarding the inspiration and don't want to use it, it's not bad, but it can be improved upon. So how can that be improved? By awarding inspiration to players often, then first of all, it's a form of feedback for what sort of actions are very thematic with the campaign. What kind of things the players can do to make the game more fun, essentially. And by having inspiration be awarded more times, it can be a faster form of feedback, and the players feel the benefit of role-playing well in this case. And compared to a situation where inspiration is awarded once and maybe not used for the entire session, if we compare that to a situation where inspiration is awarded, let's say, at least one time per player per session or more, then not only players act in a more thematic way according to their characters, but also they get a rules-wise benefit to go together with that. So maybe it comes as a surprise that my favorite part of this new version is not something rules-related or combat-related or damage-related and so on, and it's rather something motivation and role-playing related, because in my experience, all those fun moments, all these moments in the game where the characters did something silly, or the characters saved someone from themselves or from bringing peril upon the party, are the moments that are most entertaining, and Dungeons & Dragons is a game, and games are meant to be entertaining, I think. So I think it acts upon the most vital part of the game. And of course, if you're having fun, then you want to play the game more, and all the rules, the spells, the combat, the movement, the skills, and so on, all of these will naturally come into play, and players will naturally want to know more about these rules. Anyway, that's what I think about this topic. It might be a bit controversial, since whenever a new edition comes up, usually the focus is on mechanics and who does more damage and how grapple works and all that, which I think is fine. I was just really happy about this particular update to 5th, and I wanted to share. So I'm looking forward to hear what you think about it. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have fun.